Hey, y'all. Good morning. Buenos dias a todos. Thank you for joining me this morning. I see some of y'all in the chat. If you're here with us, go ahead and say hello. I am Adelia Borchade. This is the Picky Girl Travels the World channel. I'm the picky girl who at least used to travel the world before the pandemonium broke out. Today, joining me is Roxana Bangura, who lives in Veracruz, Mexico. And I think you moved to Mexico a little bit before I did. When did you move to Mexico?
June of 2017.
Okay, so you beat me by a month then.
Okay, so we've been here 4 years. 4 years.
Well, you've been in Mexico the whole time. I had a case of the stupids and left.
Not at all. Not at all.
Went to Asia for a little bit, but I came back as soon as I could. Good morning, Kathy.
Cool.
Good morning, Axel. Welcome. This is your first time. Venus, good morning. Good morning, Miss Stephanie Perry. Annabelle, good morning, everybody. Excuse me if I look a little sweaty, y'all. I'm not used to this. It's the hot time right here in Mexico City, which is usually late April, May. And when I say hot, it's like 85, 82, 83, but there's no humidity. Good morning, La Jamaica. Good morning, Ms. Weiss. So if you're just joining us, we were talking about the fact that Roxana and I both moved to Mexico roughly around the same time back in 2017. Now, the main reason I wanted you here today is one, you moved to Mexico with your daughter. How old was your daughter at the time?
She was 8 years old that June, and she turned 9 that August. So just, right at that precipice of 8 turning 9. And but she was in 3rd grade, going into 4th grade here in Mexico.
Okay. And she chose Veracruz, Mexico, which is not a place we hear a lot about, especially in expat circles and in particularly in Black expat circles. So we'll start with, what precipitated your move to Mexico?
So many things. Always wanted to live abroad, and I spent some time in Europe and West Africa, Western Europe and West Africa in my 20s, and I should have stayed abroad. The trajectory of my life would have been very different. But I came back to the States and did the whole marriage thing, had a child, bought a home independently, got married. Marriage didn't work out, and lost my home. And so it was me and my daughter, and I was like, okay, I'm a single mom, what to do, working 3 jobs, really not having any time for myself or her, primarily, and wanting to travel abroad again. I'm like, how can I do this with my daughter? I'm not a nurse, I'm not a scientific person, I'm not a federal worker. What skill do I have? How can I do this? So I joined Black Americans Living Abroad, and I always have to mention that I admired the people in that group. I wanted to be like them. I envied them. I wanted to be like them. I had so much admiration. So I would follow the group, mostly trolling and learning. The English bit came up, and I'm like, well, I can do this. I can figure it out. So the impetus was always wanting to travel abroad, always wanting to live abroad. I did the home marriage thing, and that didn't work out. So that started the spark to move abroad, and I was headed to West Africa where my family's from, to the Gambia. My cousin died suddenly, and I didn't want to pursue the other family members because we were in mourning, but I needed to get out. So Mexico, I met a sister in Black Americans Living Abroad, Bala, and she mentioned Mexico. And I had always been interested in the African presence around the world in the diaspora, particularly in Latin America, Spanish-speaking countries. So, I'm a history buff, cultural buff, a wannabe anthropologist. So that sparked the Mexico. And then I met my sister here, Rakia, and that's what led me to Veracruz. And then, I would ask in the expat groups about Veracruz, and the groups that were non-Black were very discouraging. And Rakia, they were very discouraging. They said terrible things about Veracruz, and they lived in all the usual expat immigrant spaces. And I knew that I didn't want to live like that. And Rakia gave me a different perspective, and the perspective that I needed as a Black woman moving abroad, because she had done it, 10 years prior. So I appreciated her perspective. I understood it, and here I am.
I find that really interesting. Well, yes and no, because in those other expat groups, it's very much like, why deviate from the norm? Like, why not go to Puerto Vallarta, Playa del Carmen, like Baja, those places. So on the one hand, that doesn't surprise me, but on the other, that they would have negative things to say does kind of surprise me.
Absolutely negative things in the non-Black groups, to the point where I was so discouraged. I left the groups. I stopped commenting, and I left the majority of those groups. And I just started to move in Black spaces online, and didn't talk about Veracruz too much. There was nothing to talk about because people weren't here. I knew one other sister that lived here too, Hope. Let me not forget Hope. Hope was another sister that encouraged me to live in Veracruz, and she's been very helpful. She doesn't live too far from us, maybe 30, 40 minutes by bus, 20 minutes by car. So between Hope and Rakia, they encouraged me to move to Veracruz. And, they're Black women. I have to listen to my sisters. And I like the fact that I'm in an unusual spot. It's very beneficial. It's been very beneficial on many levels, professionally, as well as personally. I mean, it's good for my pocket that I live in an area that's not gentrified or that's not saturated with immigrants and expats. The only other place that I would probably consider, well, not the only other, but I love Mexico City, and I love where you live.
What is there not to love?
What is there not to love? Exactly. What is there not to love? It's a fantastic, happy place. That would probably be, the only thing is y'all not near a beach, so that's the only thing. That's the only thing, and the weather can get kind of funky. But other than that, I think it was very smart of me, I think, to move to an area that's not expat heavy. And I don't want to see this area become expat or immigrant heavy. I don't want to see that happen, because when I say that, I should say immigrants and expats from the United States and Canada.
Yeah, because other foreigners move differently.
Yes.
Than the Americans and the Canadians. Now, if y'all are not familiar with Mexican geography, Mexico City is sort of in the middle of the country, sitting in a valley. Veracruz is about 3 hours by car?
Yeah, about 3 to 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours by car on the coast,
east,
the Gulf Coast.
On the coast. So, okay. So you were in Bala, somebody, hipped you to the possibility of Veracruz. And from a cultural, historical standpoint, why was Veracruz of interest to you?
Well, I'm an African history buff. I'm an Africanist. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I try to call myself that. And I had heard about the African presence here in Mexico years. Started to read up on Yanga, but it was this distant thing. And then I read that he could possibly be from Guinea-Conakry. So that's a direct connection to my family. My father's father, my paternal grandfather, was from Guinea-Conakry. So I wanted to, I felt connected in that space, in that way. And that drew me to Veracruz. And in particularly, you don't hear much, or, there's a very strong African presence in a Cuba and a Puerto Rico and a Dominican Republic. And coming from the Bronx, New York, I'm very familiar with those cultures. It's kind of like Spanish and the cultures, the diaspora around it is very comfortable for me, but I hadn't really known about the Mexican perspective, the African presence in Mexico. And then I was, through my research, I was made to understand that there was a strong presence here. The song La Bamba, literally the last name Bamba is my cousin's husband's last name. He's Mandinga.
Wow.
So that name originates from the Mali Empire. That is her last name, Bamba. And then, you hear about Mandinga and Mofongo. All of these things are very West African. So all of that drew me to this area, and I felt like I would be very comfortable here.
What I've seen kind of over the years, as there has been an increased interest in connecting with the Afro-Mexican parts of the country, or places that have a history of a connection with Africa. So like, I'm hoping to come to Veracruz sometime in the next couple of months, because I want to check out some of that as well. But I will tell any of y'all that are in here, if you go into some of the other groups and you ask about that, you're not going to get much of a response, because historically, the African influence and presence here has kind of been downplayed. My personal opinion is it's because of the greater narrative of, oh, we're all mestizo, we're all Mexican, like, let's not divide ourselves up about race, although they have no problem dividing themselves up when it comes to wealth.
And color.
And color. They'll tell you that, oh, we don't care about race, but they definitely care about color, which is to be expected, given that they were colonized by the Spanish, because the Spanish had a unique fascination with skin color and how much of this you were versus how much of that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, how did you go about researching a move to a place that isn't very popular with foreigners? I had to do something similar, because in 2006, I moved to Honduras. You talk about a place foreigners don't go.
Yes.
And like you, I moved with my daughter. She was 15 at the time, but your daughter was, in elementary school.
Yes.
So how did you go about, gathering the information you need that made you comfortable enough to make that move?
Really relying heavily on Hope and Rakia, relying heavily on them and reading voraciously. I mean, I decided to move in October of 2016. I was moving, and I have to say here that I'm an extreme person. I have an addictive personality, meaning if I set my mind to something, or I want something, I hyper focus on it. So from October of 2016 through our move date, I read voraciously on Mexico, on Veracruz, all that I could find, resources online. And, I would glean things from the groups. I literally would go around areas in Maryland and Virginia, where we lived at the time, and talk to people who were Mexican, who were from Veracruz. And there wasn't enough information that you could tell me. I was a sponge. I have a friend from Puebla, and I was always in his ear. He lives in the States, and I'm like, well, I was always in his ear. It was important for me to connect with Mexicans in the States, and then also I joined Mexican groups on Facebook. So I was with groups that had immigrants from the United States as well as Mexicans in Mexico. And then literally just reading every day, voraciously. I read all the time. I joined a church to teach English, volunteered. I volunteered to teach English at a church, and it was a Catholic church, and most of the people in the English language program were from Central South America, the Americas. So I was a troll there. I'm teaching English, but I'm trying to learn Spanish. I'm trying to get the 411. Tell me, let me know. So I read a lot. And then the reason why I chose where we live now in Orizaba, because over Cordoba, where Hope lives, I was told that it was very family friendly. And I needed to have that type of support, being a single mom with my daughter, a Black mother, not really speaking Spanish very well, speaking Spanglish, New York Spanish, and thinking I spoke Spanish, not really. Knowing this, I thought I did. I'm like, hey, Spanish is like the third language. I'm from the Bronx. What you talking about? I speak Spanish.
And then you get here and you find out, no, you don't
speak Spanish. Not at all. So, just reading voraciously, using online sources, trolling in groups, and talking to Mexican people in Mexico as well, in Veracruz. I mean, I had friends on the ground when I got here. And then people were also reaching out to me because, I published the journey. I published on my channel what I was going through step by step. And so people who were Mexican were reaching out to me and, connected with me. And I knew people before I got here on the ground who were Mexican, so I just absorbed information, voraciously just absorbed information.
Okay. And guys, if you have questions specifically about Veracruz, please drop them in the comments. Now, what is because it is coastal. It's on is that the Gulf of Mexico there?
Yes, the
So it is
Atlantic coast.
coastal. There are beaches.
Hmm.
What is the weather like typically?
Well, closer to the coast, when you're in the port of Veracruz, this big international port of commerce and products, it's very warm, it's very humid, it's very muggy, and it's always usually warmer there than where I am. I'm in the mountains, and it's always a bit cooler here. Gorgeous, gorgeous weather. There's a lot of we have a lot of vegetation, very muy rico en mi corazón. So aquí, sugar, coffee, rum, petroleum. This area is like the petroleum, base in Mexico. So these are resources that we have here. But when you're close to the coast, it's very, very hot. And then where I am in the mountains, it's a bit cooler. It's physically, the topography here, it's a gorgeous state. It's beautiful. Mountains, jungle, coastal line. It's a beautiful state.
Okay, so you're in the mountains. How long does it take you to get to the beach?
About an hour 15.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's not bad.
Well,
I'm
that's
not a
the
beach
port.
person.
I should say the port. But then, we have a beach trip coming up the second week in May, and everything is so lejos. It's like 3 hours to get this particular beach that we're going to. It's called Villarrica, that Playa Villarrica, and it's about 3 hours away. They're calling it the Tulum of Veracruz. So
Mm,
I've never, yeah, the Tulum of Veracruz. So I'm a basement bargain budget Barbie. So I'm all about where can I get the most for the least amount. So I'm excited to go to the knockoff Tulum to see what it's like. I've never been to Tulum, so I'm excited to see what it's like. We're gonna go like the second week in May.
all right. Kathy asks, are the beaches rocky?
Some of them are, well, we've been to Chachalacas, which is a popular beach, maybe 2 hours away from where we live. And that beach, there's some rocky areas, but there's a significant amount of sand. That beach has a lagoon, but for the most part, I would say no. From the beaches that I've seen online, but I haven't been to many beaches here, so don't hold me to that.
A friend of mine just took a trip. There's an area with sand dunes and
That's
the beach.
Chachalacas.
Okay.
That's
Yeah. And
Chachalacas.
so from her pictures, it did not look overly rocky to me.
No, it's not.
I get the impression that the beaches there are quite swimmable, but there are some rocky patches.
Well, that particularly Chachalacas, I'll share a story with you. It happened to Rakia. Chachalacas, there's a river basin that opens up into the sea. And a certain time of the day, in the evening after 6, you could be, on the sea floor in Chachalacas. And because of the way the river feeds into the ocean, the bottom comes out. So you could be standing on solid or sanded ground, and the bottom will come out where you have to swim for your life. So
Yeah.
and
No,
yeah,
thank you.
and
No, thank you.
exactly. So there was a very harrowing story that Rakia had. That same beach area, there's what do you call these things? Crocodiles and all these sort of wildlife. When we went there summer before last, and we went there again this year. When we went there summer before last, they wanted to take us through the lagoons, but I wasn't. I'm like, I don't need to see crocodiles. I'm sure it's beautiful, but I wasn't with that. But that area feeds into the ocean, and if you're not careful, you can drown because of the way the two bodies of water interact in Chachalacas. So con cuidado.
Okay. I'm not a beach person, and that does not,
Okay.
that makes me want to go even
Yeah,
less.
yeah. So I'm cautious now. This Villarrica, I'm like, you stay right. Anyway, I like the beach. I don't have to be all in the water, like my feet get wet. I don't like to get all wet and sandy. I just like being near the water. My daughter's the one who likes to get in the water, but I always make sure, she's close to the shore.
Okay. Lai Hamika said, did you say?
No, I didn't say I can't salt fish. I mean, I said I can't salt fish. No, I said con cuidado. Be careful.
Okay. So was there a concern about how you were going to support yourself when you moved to Mexico?
You know what? Nope. There's a Judge Lynn Tyler, Judge Lynn, divorce court. I love her like cook food. She was like, sometimes you don't have all your ducks in a row. Sometimes you just have to gather all what you have and make that move. And I think that was the attitude that I had. Like, it's just going to have to work out because I'm committed to making this happen. And I had never been to Mexico. I had
Oh,
never been
wow.
here. No, I didn't. You look, the thing I knew about Mexico, other than the recent stuff I studied prior to that, I had paid attention to Mexico when I was in college because, people would come to Cancun or whatever. And I just started drinking, and I don't drink alcohol. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to Mexico to drink. Spring break, I got time for that, I got to work. So I always worked in my spring break or I did something very productive. So my point is, Mexico wasn't really a thought of mine. It wasn't a place that I thought to come to on a destination. I'd never traveled here before. I literally just moved here. So like I said, I'm all in or all out. So I was like, yeah, I gathered all what I had. I gathered my savings, and I just knew it was going to work out. I said, I'll get a job teaching online, and
But you hadn't arranged that before you left. That was the
I did.
plan.
Well, I did have a job online. But it paid next to nothing, and it was like a call center type thing, selling like security systems or something online. And cost of living here is so low, but it wasn't that sustainable. So I did have that job prior to moving, but it didn't work out in the end. So I was real loosey goosey with it. And I just knew that it had to work out because I was committed to living here with my daughter. And another motivation, I keep on, she needed to speak Spanish, so be fluent in the language. So all of that motivated me to move here. I always knew my daughter any child of mine couldn't just be monolingual. She had to speak several languages.
Are you comfortable sharing how much you had in savings when you made the move?
I had a little bit over $10,000
Okay.
when I moved here. Mm-hmm.
All right. So you were like, it'll work out. You had something, and you were thinking about.
I did move with the savings. I just didn't move here with nothing. That's how we were able to sustain. Yeah.
I have interviewed somebody. She didn't have any kids, but she literally moved to Spain with less than $1. Yeah, everybody can't roll like that, but
yeah. And I'm not even mad at her.
Hey, you do what you got to do.
You do what you got to do.
Okay, so did you, because you were thinking about the potential of teaching English online, did you get certified before you left the U.S.?
No, I got certified here. I got my certificates here. When I got here, I did all my certificates here. So I wrote on my little degree and my experience, and then got certified here. The school that I worked at was able to certify me, and back to being in a place where there are not many expats or immigrants from the United States or Canada. I'm a rarity, and I use that to my advantage, and that was very good. That was very successful. Whatever the word is,
beneficial?
It was very key. Yes, it was very. Thank you. It was very beneficial to me to secure a job, because I got my job who sponsored me, because there's just not many Americans around.
Okay, so you got a work visa.
Yes, ma'am. I am on a work visa. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I will say, because for a brief, teeny tiny period of time, I taught business English, and quickly discovered that although I had 20 years of teaching experience in, the social studies, technology, I don't like teaching English. But they had sponsored me and got me a work visa. And one of the things I typically discourage people wanting to come here to physically teach English, because if you're looking for sponsorship, that is so hard to come by. But I think you make a good point. If you choose a location that is not expat heavy, your odds of getting sponsorship are going to increase.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's it. Mm-hmm.
Because for those that don't know, for a company to sponsor you, they have to submit documentation to immigration that shows that you are somehow uniquely qualified, or that they can't get a Mexican with your capabilities and your qualifications. And then there's also a limit to how many foreigners a single company can hire.
That's right.
So it's not the easiest thing, especially if you're heading to a place where there are lots of expats.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a struggle.
Very true.
So you have your work visa, and I assume that at the end of 4 years, you're going to go ahead and become a permanent resident.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
what about educating your daughter?
Well, that's a whole thing. We arrived here in June, and the neighborhood that we were living in, where we found housing, um, my daughter became friends with the girl in the neighborhood. So, my whole thing was to make this as, it's traumatic. It's traumatic to move. It's traumatic to move to another country. Your childhood. I know I've left an indelible mark on her with this move. So, here I am, mother guilt, mother guilt. So I was like, oh, she got a friend? She got a friend. So, I'm like, okay, she got a friend. So we went to the friend's school. And I'm like, okay, well, she has a friend. She knows someone here. She's not like a fish out of water, but she was. So we arrived to the school. We came in June. So school classes here extend until July. So my daughter was able to go to the school early to acclimatize. So she went to school in July to get to know the teachers and the other students. And, they were on her like white on rice. And it was very overwhelming for her. So this is a public school. And it was fully Spanish. And I know that I threw her into the deep end of the pool, as it were, because I felt as though if I were to put her in a bilingual school, my daughter wouldn't pick up on the language. I knew that instinctively she would just rely on her English. So I put her into an all-day public school that was only Spanish. And there was a lot of, there was bullying, there were problems there. She started school in August. And I would say by that December, she said she had a bit of a command of the language. Like she was able to hold conversations and, hold her own. And it just got better as the time went on. Unbeknownst to me, when they say bilingual in our area, the schools are not really bilingual. They're mostly Spanish with a bit of sprinkling of English thrown in. But I didn't know that at the time. I just assumed, oh no, my daughter needs to be in Spanish all day, because one of my primary objectives was for her to get this language.
And it sounds like that's happening. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your daughter was 8 turning 9. So,
Yes.
And you said she was able to have a conversation. She got there in July. She was able to have a conversation, by like December?
By December, she said she felt as though she felt a little bit not competent in the language, comfortable in the language.
Conversational, at least?
Conversational, at least, yes. She felt conversational, at least. And culturally, my motto is, language is culture, with the Bangura Institute, one of my mottos. And, her being able to be in a school setting with other children, she's privy to things that I wasn't privy to at the time, because I wasn't in an all-day Spanish speaking setting. So she knows a lot of cultural references, and to the point where she would say, Mommy, we don't speak like that. So she would say, Mommy, no, that's not how we say it. Her dad's supervisor at the time was from Chiapas. So when we went to the States, 2018 Christmas, he didn't want to get off the phone with her. He said that she sounds like a little Mexican kid. He was like, are you sure she was born in the States? I mean, he just fell in love with speaking. He just loved her. Loved her accent, and children are like sponges, so she absorbs so much more she's having such a more maybe enriching experience, or very different experience than me, because of her command of the language.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Was there a cost for the public school?
Just supplies, books and uniform. And then you had to pay like, I'm gonna call it a quota. And that basically is a maintenance fee. So you have to help with the toilet tissue. You have to help maybe with the water bill, the utility bill. All of these things are expected, but there was no mensual. There was no tuition bill.
Like every month?
Like every month, no. It was from time to time. And little fees, they were very project heavy, which used to irk all my nerves, because I was always worried into the papeleria, to get supplies, and they were just project heavy. And the uniforms, they were very, in my, anal about uniforms. And I came from a Catholic school, so I was just like, oh, we got to do this again. It was very traumatic. I'm like, uniform business, all over again. So it brought back bad memories. So we did the public school for her first year here, and then we transitioned to a to private school.
Okay. I'm asking these questions in case somebody watches this either now or on the replay, because I talk to a lot of women who have kids and they think they have to wait until their kids are grown and their kids are out of the house to leave. They don't really see how to navigate, like, how do you educate somebody abroad? And the two moms I've talked to so far both have their kids, one kind of world schools, unschools, another, her daughter was already in online school in the US, so they continued that over. How much would you say roughly you had to pay a year at the public school?
Well, I'm so like dumb in math, pero the private schools here, they were like $110 a month.
Okay.
$110, $120 a month, and that's just tuition. Okay, there's separate costs for your books, and there's separate costs for uniforms, and then, like I said, these schools they're very project heavy. So project heavy, and then there was just there's Tyler's, which are like after school extracurricular activities. My daughter is a dancer, she's a swimmer, and my whole thing is, and a lot of it was to assuage my guilt. I had her made sure she was at every dance. I just had her very busy because I took her away from her dad, I took her away from her community in the States. So, but the tuition to me was very reasonable. Obviously, when you compare it to tuition in the United States, and I couldn't afford her going to like a private
like an international school.
No, I couldn't afford that in the States where we lived. I would have to work 10 jobs. So I couldn't afford that. And I needed to get this language. I have goals for her: ride horses, speak Spanish, and learn how to fly a plane. And all of these things yes, these are goals for my daughter. So, we have a woman who's a pilot here, and, she's mentoring my daughter. So I say all this to say, a part of the motivation was my money, I could do more for her, education-wise, and enriching her culturally here than I could in the States, because in the States it's trading time. I just wouldn't be around her. I would be working all the time to try to give her these things, and that's just, it wasn't good for her or myself or anything.
Okay. Lahamika would like to know about the process of like enrolling her and entering her into the public school.
Claro que sí, mi hermana. Okay, so what happened with us, again, the benefits of being in a small town, because when we arrived here, we were on the visa, FMN, the tourist visa. In a small town, you need a corp. A corp, I'm going to equate it to a social security number or a tax identification number. You're legitimate with a corp number, and we didn't have it at the time. But because I know someone who knew someone who knew someone, community, small town, so these are the pros and cons of living in a small town in an area where there are not many people that are like us. And they were just like, hey, you want to bring your child to our school? Come on in. And they just waived things, and they gave her like a temporary corp, or she made the director of the school, the director is the equivalent to the principal. She just made it so that my daughter could come in. But, I knew that would happen because I believe in manifestation, and I was so focused on this being successful for my daughter. All roads were open for us. So we got into the public school without having the corp. I just presented her documents from the United States, her school documents, and her birth certificate. And that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, somebody was sitting here.
My baby's outside. I'm a terrible mama. I'm
she
like,
was
outside.
up under the desk, like leaning on my chair. I was like, okay, I'll pick you up. Okay.
Outside.
So let me ask, because you are in a small town, a lot of foreigners, when they move, whether they assume it or it's necessary, I don't know, are considering international schools, feeling like that's the best way for them to get, I guess, similar education as to what their kids would get in the US. Where you are there even any international schools?
There's There are good schools here. How do I? In Cordoba, I was, there's an international school in Cordoba. So Cordoba is a bus ride away. But in our school, in our area, there are bilingual schools, and there are no, as far as I know, there are no international programs. This was something that I wanted to bring into the school that I worked at. I was trying to have them turn into an international baccalaureate program. And I mean, it's a lot to say, but what do I say? This is being who I am and how determined and focused I am. I think in the grand scheme of things, that particular school just wasn't ready for my drive and my focus. And I know that, and I'm not saying me as an individual, but me, my Americanness, my straightforwardness, my New Yorkness, get it done, my goal-orientedness. I think it was too much for some people. And the school handicapped me in that regard, because I was like, hey, you guys are a bilingual school. You're working with Cambridge, you're working with Anglo, you're working with these international organizations. What do we need to do to get us to a place where an international baccalaureate program? Like, I'm all in. I'm all in. And I received some pushback from that school. The other school that I sent my daughter to in 14, they are in the process of having an international baccalaureate program. And what helps with them is they have staff from France, they have staff from Spain, they have staff from Belgium, and then they had me. So, the staff was comprised of people from different countries. And I was like, yeah, because I would love for my daughter to graduate from an international baccalaureate program. That's another goal that I have for her in the United States, but the school district in which that had the IB program, I couldn't afford to live there because of the housing was expensive to buy a home there or rent. So so I'm like, okay, what I couldn't do in the States, what can I do here to make this happen? And the motivating factor, obviously, we're mothers, and we're going to do whatever we could do for our children. So I wanted this for my daughter, so nothing is going to stop me. I'm a trainer. You're not going to help me. Where can I go?
And I like that you mentioned your Americanness, because I think sometimes those of us from the US can get caught into thinking that, well, because Mexico is next door, there aren't the cultural nuances as opposed to moving someplace further. And our Americanness is very different than the way that people move here, and so you've gotta.
Oh, I know that I was a threat, because this particular director of my former school blackballed me. So she told other schools in the area not to hire me. And I don't even speak good Spanish. Can you imagine if I spoke good Spanish? I would have her job. That's the thing. I would take her job. You understand? She didn't speak a lick of English, but she's the director of English programs. So I say that to say, I've noticed that, working here, I've worked here in schools. I'm not looking from the outside in. I've worked side by side with, mi compadres are Mexicans. So I feel as though I'm qualified to speak on this. The work ethic is different. And the drive is different, not better or worse, it's just different. And again, I know I'm extreme. I moved to another country for my daughter to speak another language. Like, I could have stayed in the States for this, but I'm extreme. So I'm committed. I was very committed to my daughter capturing Spanish. And that's the same commitment that I brought to the classroom for my students in speaking English. As best as I could, I tried to replicate a very immersive experience for them. So I'm looking out the window. So I say that to say our Americanness could be a great benefit here, and our Blackness could be a great benefit here, and then it could also be very detrimental depending on who you're dealing with.
Okay. We had a question, kind of like, I'm sure people are curious about what life is like where you live. Now, tell me the names of the towns, because Veracruz is a state in Mexico.
Yes,
when
ma'am.
y'all first moved there, what city or town were you in?
Well, we've been in Orizaba.
Orizaba.
We have the state of Veracruz, and then we have the port of Veracruz. Okay, and the capital of the state is Jalapa. And we live in Orizaba. Orizaba from the Veracruz port is about an hour or so away. And then from the state's capital, I think it's about 2 to 3 hours away from the capital, Jalapa. And it's a mountain town. We're in the mountains, Sierra, so we're surrounded by the Sierra Madre Mountains, and literally we have a 360-degree view of the mountains. So I can make a complete circle, and I can always see a mountain, which I've fallen in love with. I love mountains. When I traveled in Europe, when I was in England, I fell in love with the mountains there, but it's a whole different thing here, to the point where when I travel back to the States and it's, where we were, it's flat. I'm like, this is so ugly. How you look up and all you see is like sky and building. So I'm so spoiled by these mountains. Mountains and sea, mountains and sea. So we are about maybe from the port, about an hour from the port, the beach. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know you moved recently, but y'all are still in Orizaba.
No, we're still in Orizaba. The Bangura Institute, along with the Welsh English Learning Center, shameless plug. Our businesses are based here. So yes, I'm in a small town, but because of that, I have access to these schools. I've built up a reputation because I'm one of the few Black women in the town that teaches English, that speaks English, that's a native English speaker. So I've used that to my benefit. So really, in terms of my business, my educational initiative, I need to be here. So that's why we moved like a couple of blocks away.
Well,
so
and let's talk about your business and how you got there. Like, you didn't necessarily come to Mexico with the idea of starting a business, did you?
No, ma'am.
Okay, but here you are now, a business owner. So how did we get from point A to point B?
Again, the school that I worked at, based on sharing my experiences, wanting to let other people know what I was doing, particularly to encourage other women, other single moms, other Black single moms. Hey, I don't have a doctorate degree. I'm not a scientist. I don't have a pension. I'm not in the Army. I'm not a government federal worker, but I was managed to cobble together what I had to move here, as a way of encouraging other women that wanted to do the same. So one of the things was people reached out to me wanting to have their child speak Spanish. So I told my school, I said, hey, there's people here who are interested in their children learning Spanish. Why don't we have a summer intensive program in Spanish? We could have a camp. And pre-COVID, this was in 2018. And I said, this particular parent was interested in also teaching English. So I said, hey, you have a 2-for-1. And the school, the owners of the school was on board, but you have the yes people who blocked me. So that was like the beginning of me starting my own business in 2018. Simply, I wanted people to have the same experience as my daughter. I'm like, okay, well, if you can't move here, at least you could come in for the summer. You could work, have this immersive experience for a couple of weeks, and your child could pick up on Spanish. So that started in 2018. I started to push the idea again in this international school, and they were on board the fall of 2019. And then, COVID happened, February of 2020, and everyone forgot their faculties. But I was still pushing, and I'm still pushing. So they were like not supportive of having an exchange program. And at first, it was just an exchange program, having students exchange languages. And it's grown into now, 2020, we all had to pivot because of COVID. Hey, I got to do something, what's happening here. So the Bangura Institute started last year officially putting pen to paper, putting it out there. And, we provide exchange programs for students, but also professional development and for teachers, for language teachers, focusing on linguistic education. Always, my motivation is making linguistic education accessible for marginalized communities. And what I know from going to school in the States and having my daughter in school, the schools that offer language programs are usually private. If they're at the primary level, they're usually private. Elementary level, they're private. They're very exorbitant. Or when you are in a public school situation, you don't get to a language class until you're 14. And by then it's harder to capture a language. So I knew that it was important to capture languages early for my daughter. And I wanted to provide the same opportunities for children that look like her, Black and brown children.
That's awesome.
These were the impetus, this was the motivation in starting the Bangura Institute. And at the same time, living in this area, English, Spanish, these are languages, but like I said, language is culture. And what we're finding with language teachers here in this region, many of them are just not, they're not as well-versed in English as they can be. So I wanted them to strategize with their counterparts in the States, while at the same time, having Spanish language teachers strategize with native Spanish speakers here. So it's not a north-south thing. It's not coming from the United States and teaching Mexico. No, it's an equitable exchange in linguistic education. So those are the reasons behind the Bangura Institute.
I love that. I love that. I did drop a link in the chat to the Bangura Institute's Facebook page.
Mil gracias. Muy amable.
Mil no problem. There is definitely some interest in what life is like daily life is like for you in Orizaba. Axel wanted to know, Axel Foley, are organically grown foods available?
Yes, they are. We have that at the open mercado. You can find that at the open mercado. You have to ask, and it has to be labeled, obviously, as well as the supermarkets here. They have organic produce, and it's to the point where I was talking to my mom, and I was talking about food, and my mom was a freezer person. So she always had the big, huge freezer where she would literally buy like half a cow, half a lamb, and split it with the aunties. We always had meat, and I'm like, Mommy, we don't eat, our freezer's like empty. If we have something in the freezer, it's a drink that we want to get cold or ice cream. I said, I don't really keep freezer food like I did in the States. I don't. We buy our produce fresh. If we're eating chicken or fish, we usually buy it fresh. And we don't freeze fruit and store fruit like that. What's my daily life like? If people want to know. Well, I'm here with my daughter. We moved into a home. Before we were in a departamento, and then our first home was a home farther away. We're in the center of town, and my days are so chill. It's so different. The most important thing to me is making it to CrossFit. Making it to the gym.
Oh, okay. So how much does it cost to go to CrossFit in Orizaba?
In Orizaba, CrossFit is 500 pesos a month.
So that's about $25.
$25 a month, 5 days a week. I go to CrossFit, and then Wednesdays I do my aerial yoga for 60 pesos. So I turn upside down.
Wait. 60 pesos
a class? Yes.
So what's that? $3?
Yes, that's my aerial yoga. So we turn upside down. Have all the blood come to my face, and that's like $3 a class. So I do my aerial yoga with my daughter. We walk our dog. My food. It's very tranquil. And of course, I'm working, but I work at my own pace. So working, I always think, it's so hard for me. We're so conditioned to, you get up, you take a shower, you eat, you go to, I get up, I'm working, I'm on my phone, and I'm like, oh, Maris, I'm working, I'm on my phone, but I'm working. And it's so hard for me to quantify it, because I'm working lying down on the floor, because I'm not pressed with my bills. My rent, when I moved here, was $100, 2,000 pesos in our first home here in Orizaba. Then we wanted to move up like the Jeffersons, so we found an all-inclusive apartment, and it was 5,000 pesos. So that
okay, well, wait, I'm gonna stop you right there. 5,000 pesos.
Yeah.
See, now this is the difference.
Don't come here. Orizaba is full. Don't come here.
Now, see, this is the difference. If y'all watch the video I did, where I did two videos. I did one on finding an apartment in Mexico City, in Mexico, and to get your own space in this city, you got to spend at least 10,000 pesos. And for 10,000 pesos, you're not going to get much. I've told y'all, Mexico City is the most expensive place in the country. And then I did another video on my monthly costs. So yeah, I'd kill if my rent was 10,000 pesos, let alone 5. Because that
was high.
Yeah. Okay, because
expensive. That was because I was paying 2,000 and I could have paid less, but the landlord got greedy because I liked the house, and so I could have. Listen, I'm not even look because the landlord was a friend of Rakia. Okay, because like I said, small town, who he could have charged me like $80, and it was a house. When I say a house, 3 bedrooms, full bathroom, kitchen, and a closed-in garage, a full home. And he could have charged me like $80, $90, but he got greedy and charged me $100. So I'll say that. That was our first home here in Orizaba. We lived there for a year, and then we had to move, and I found an apartment. Now, with the apartment, why I moved there, it was 5,000 initially because it included gas and it included utilities, it included furniture. Yes, 5,000 pesos. That includes utilities and furniture at the time. So that
Wow.
included internet. That was internet. That was cable. That was my light bill, and that was gas. 5,000 pesos. And that was in 2018. We lived there up until 2 weeks ago. Now the rent went up. It went from 5,000 to 5,250, and then he took away the light. Okay, he took away the light, and our light bill was about 200 pesos every other month. 200 pesos is about $9. He took away the light, and then the following year, 2020, it went up to 5,300 pesos.
Does it get warm enough there that you would want AC?
If you're a person, yeah, you could, like right now, I could have the AC on. I'm not an AC person.
You have an AC?
I do not, because I'm not
okay.
an AC person, because I have allergies and asthma, so I'm not an AC person. I don't need it. I can take the heat. I have fans. But you could definitely use the AC here. You can use the air conditioner here. It's hot. It's hot enough now where, it gets hot here. If it's at the port, if the port is 70, it'll be like 65, 60 here. So right now it's about maybe 90 degrees now. So maybe at the port it's 95. So it's hot. I'm hot now, and we slept with our fans yesterday on, and I'm warm now. I just don't have the fan on because I don't want noise for the video. But it does get hot here. It's not cold. But let me say this: we do have a proper winter, and I say that to say, come December, January, February, you can see your breath.
Okay, see, we don't have a proper winter in Mexico
It does
City.
get chilly. I'm not. It does get chilly here in the mountains. Yeah.
It gets. Do you know what the elevation is there?
No, I forget. Someone told me.
Okay.
I forget.
Okay,
I think you're higher, though. I believe you're higher.
Oh, really?
You're higher than. I think you're higher than we are.
Okay. Axel Foley also wants to know about transportation. How does that work?
Transportation is excellent. We have buses. They run from maybe 5, 6 in the morning up until 10, 11 at night. There's a plethora of taxis. We do not have Uber or any rideshare services. I wish that we did, but we do have taxis that are cash, and we have transportation. But it's a small town. Once you see everything here, it's a small town. So, well, it's a city. It's a city. I shouldn't, I'm calling it a town. It is a city. We have a president, which is what you would equate to a mayor, and there's the city council. But it's really a gem, and I want to keep it as a gem. I wish it doesn't get gentrified, because it'll spoil the town, and cost of living will go up for the locals as well as myself.
Yeah, and that's always a concern. Is Orizaba as beautiful as some say?
Orizaba is gorgeous. It's beautiful, beautiful. Like I said, we have 360 mountain views, wonderful vegetation. If you go up into the mountains, I mean, it's, you feel like you're close to God. It's gorgeous, blue skies. We feel very safe here. People are very kind to us. Someone's asking how safe it is.
Yeah.
There's crime. Crime is universal. So crime is everywhere. Crime happens all the time. So I'm a mother. I'm a single mother. I'm a Black single mother. So I mind how I go. I'm not a person who frequents bars or nightclubs. I'm also an educator here, a teacher, so I have to be careful with the way I carry myself.
That's small town living right there.
Small town, yeah. I'm definitely adjusted to this small town. I'm careful who I associate myself with, who my daughter associates with. I mind my business, and you're not going to see me in anybody's club or anywhere like that, because it's just me. I'm my daughter's mother and father out here. So I mind how I go, and crime is everywhere.
But would you say that you feel comfortable like walking at night?
Well, I'll tell you this. I do feel comfortable walking at night. And when we were at the school in 14 is in Cordoba, it's a bus ride away. Depending on which bus you take, it can take 20 to 40 minutes. Me and my daughter had to be in school at 6 in the morning. No, we had to be at school at 7 in the morning. But, being a New Yorker, not wanting to be late, you you late if you're on time, right? And it's such a bad habit, but that's
which is not Mexico, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's a different thing when you work in these schools, though. They're real tight with time with the schools.
Okay.
They're real tight. So we would get up in the morning, like around 4 in the morning, and we would be out of the house at 5. At these times, hola, hermana. At these times, 5 in the morning is dark. Now, me and my daughter would walk to the bus stop, and it was a hoof. It was like a mile and a half, right, to the bus stop. And I had my stick, and I have my 91 Psalms, my 23rd Psalm. I'm a spiritual person. I'm a praying person. And, I know they're like, damn, this black lady is crazy. So, I had my faith, mustard seed faith, that nothing would happen to us. And we would move in the dead of the night. And the police all knew us because the police station was very close to our old apartment. So, buenos dias, senora. Oh, buenos dias. See us walking in at 5 o'clock in the morning, like soldiers going to school. Now, we are the tienda in our neighborhood to show you the love that the love that Mexico has, the beautifulness of Mexican people. He would run out, almost with drool in his eyes. Wait for me, Roxana. I will take you to the bus stop because I got to go get bread for the store. And I'm like, come on, you late. Let's go. This man would wake up early to take me and my daughter to the bus stop in the morning. So it's these sort of things that really, and I have a lot of stories, but this sort of thing, he didn't have to do it, but he would wake up to take me and my daughter to the bus stop because he didn't want us walking. The guy who owned the tienda, the corner store, I love him for that. Matter of fact, next time I go to the States, I have to bring him something. But I say that to say that, whether, I had to get to school. My daughter had to get to school, we had to get to class. So we had to do it. Now, I walk around at night. I don't have any problem. But, I'm going to eat. I'm going to the mall. Very innocent things. I'm not in anybody's club or restaurant. Or not restaurant, but I'm not in nobody's bar or club or anything like that.
Because, Mexico has their stoplight system. Veracruz is green, correct?
Girl, I don't know. I stopped paying attention to that because it's just foolishness.
I know it's foolishness.
It's like Sesame Street, red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. I don't even know what it is now. I don't even know. I know that cases are increasing. Okay. I know that clubs are open, bars are open. There's a saying now that we have, everything is open except for the schools.
And now that was my question: were schools back open?
Nah, they're gonna open schools in June, and good and well, schools close in July. So what is the sense of opening up in June to close again like 4 to 5 weeks later to open back up at the end of August? It doesn't make sense to me. The school year is a wrap. Just come back in August. But they're opening up schools in June, and then the school year ends in Veracruz usually like the second week in July. And then Veracruz schools open up like the third week in August, around my daughter's birthday is the 27th. That's when school opens up. So what is the point? And children have been unschooled for so long. I bet you, I have a feeling a lot of kids will not come to school. I just have that feeling.
And so for those that don't know, with the stoplight system in Mexico, the rule has been that unless your state is green, you cannot open schools for physical, like going to school physically, unless, I want to say, some private schools sued. I don't know if this is national or if that's just here in Mexico City. They sued for the ability, because they were saying it was unconstitutional to, not allow kids to go to school physically. But most of the states that are green, only one that I know of, I think is Chiapas, has reopened schools, and they have been green, and whatever that means, for the longest time of most anybody. So for most kids in this country, they are either attending school online, they're not attending school. There's a huge chunk, I would say, that are not attending school at all. The official response was to put schooling on TV. How has that gone over there? That's what I figured.
It's the year that was lost. COVID, these children will be adults. Hey, you know what? There was a time when I was a kid, we didn't have school for like 2 years. School is on TV. From what other parents I've spoken to, okay, particularly those who are in the lower economic strata, their children are not being, it's not effective, because you're not going to have a TV promoter or an actor on television. It's not being effective. And what I found in my experiences here, with families teaching, just the ones that I've worked with, I'm going to bring it just to me, what my experience is here. There isn't like a trifecta relationship where it's the parent, the teacher, and the student. My experience with teachers, parents here, the onus is on the school and the teachers. There's not too much accountability when it comes to the parents being involved in the student's education. So that being said, if you have a parent that's like, hey, I send you to school, I turn on the TV, that's it. My job is done. You're not going to have successful outcomes. And I believe that is what's happening with a lot of the students here who don't have access to a live teacher online, who are in the public school system, who are, there's a television, and I don't think that it's a year that was lost for many children. And just going through the neighborhoods, even though Mexico is different in terms of bedtime, I should say my town is different in terms of bedtime. We're anal, you got to be in bed by a certain time. I've seen children out, all times. They're not getting up to go to school. Meaning if it's virtually or on television,
Yeah.
they're not in school. These children we've got a generation of unschooled children here because of this pandemic.
Okay. All right. Guys, do y'all have any more questions for Roxana about the Bangura Institute, about Orizaba, about living abroad with her daughter, anything like that? How would you rate your Spanish?
I would say, you have A1 through C2, right? So there's A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. Depending on the subject matter, usually if it's something to do with food or something to do academically with the school system, I'm pretty good. I have good vocabulary. I know words, but the structure in terms of grammar is poor. That's my problem. I don't have the grammar, but I have vocabulary all day, and I understand more than I can speak. You're not going to talk about me, I'm not going to know. But I won't be able to express myself as well. And that's just and you know what's been detrimental to my Spanish is being the quarantine, because I'm not going out and working with people every day. Because when my students had their Spanish teacher, I would sit right beside my students and they would teach me Spanish. So every day I speak, but I do have whole relationships with people who only speak Spanish. And we have whole relationships, whole conversations, whole friendships with people who are monolingual in Spanish. So I like to take that as a credit. My Spanish is not transactional based on, going to the store. I have that genuine friendships with people who don't speak English.
And I think, and this again is one of the reasons why I wanted you to come onto the channel and share your experiences, because you took a path that's not the most popular, not the most common, but here you've created this rich life and this rich experience for your daughter. You have developed meaningful relationships with local people. You are outside of the expat bubble. Like, this is what living abroad can be. It doesn't have to be, I'm just leaving the US to try and live in a miniature version of it, but it happens to be in Mexico.
I would definitely agree with you there. And when I talk to Mexicans, because they're like, they don't get me, and I'm like, well, you don't have to get me, it's not for you to get me. And I say, listen, if I wanted to live in an area where there are a lot of people from the United States, I could have stayed in the United States. It didn't make sense to me. And I says, how do I become expanded and grow and learn if I'm still in the area where everything is McDonald's and Burger King or whatever. And we have American things. We don't even eat McDonald's here. The only American thing that we eat is we do get Domino's and Little Caesars. Like, that's our American fix. But for the most part, we cook our own foods from the States, our own foods from West Africa, and we cook Mexican food. We don't participate in many Americanisms here in that regard. And I think we're richer for it. And it's really taught me to think differently. And I can have a lot of empathy. And I've learned a lot by living in this experience, not being in an area where there's expats. And it's good for my pocket, because I have other things to do with my money than to pay high rents.
Yeah, no, I'm a big advocate of getting outside of the expat bubble, whatever that means for you. Like I live in Mexico City where there are technically plenty of foreigners, but I don't live in a neighborhood where there are lots of foreigners.
And that makes a difference.
Just what was it? 2 days ago, I brought La Jamaica some stuff from the States, and we're standing outside and we're talking. And the two of us together, plus the dog, the amount of times people are walking by.
I'm so jealous that she's near you. I'm so jealous because she owes me some ground provision. I want some, what else do I want? Some escovitch fish, some oxtail, rice and peas. So many things.
I'm sure she would enjoy cooking for you more than cooking for me, because all that's wasted on me. All of that is wasted on me. But
Miss Peanut Butter, you're Miss Peanut Butter. I know you miss peanut butter.
And so this, I don't want anybody to think like if you're Black and you move to Mexico, you're going to be ostracized or whatever. It's more of we were getting looks, and it was just kind of like, wow, like we were an unusual sight, and people were just like, wow. But here's the difference, because I lived in China, where I have never been othered more than I was there. People would pass by and then they'd be like, oh, but y'all are so beautiful. Or, it's a whole different vibe. But again, if we were in the neighborhoods where there were lots of foreigners, I don't know that our interactions with people would be like that.
No, it wouldn't have been. Not at all. When we're in the more touristic areas of Mexico City, people, they may look, but for the most part, but when you leave the touristic areas, and then you're going to get looks. I mean, living in this small town, I can't do anything because everybody remembers me. If I'm rude, they're going to remember. If I'm nice, they're going to remember, depending on how you catch me. And I can't stress this enough. People have been very kind, and my daughter will tell you it's so good for her self-esteem, because as a dark-skinned girl, her beauty gets praised. Her beauty gets praised, and as a dark-skinned woman, my beauty gets praised, and that's just not something that that's a regular experience in the United States, and it's almost to the point where you're like, I know, you don't have to be because they say it so much, But there's definitely an appreciation for Black people in this area. There's definitely appreciation for places, for when it's non-expat area, non-immigrant. And I'm an immigrant. I consider myself an immigrant because I have my status here. I plan on getting permanent residency here. So I'm investing in real estate here. So this, like my mother did from West Africa, she migrated and she's an immigrant of the United States. I don't, that expat thing, no, I'm an immigrant to Mexico.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I use the term expat just for ease of use, but no, I consider myself to be an immigrant. Okay. Deb wants to know what kind of certificates you need to teach at the public school.
There's the Teaching English as a Foreign Language certificate, TEFL. There's a TOEFL, Teaching English as a Foreign Language, TOEFL, Teachers of English Foreign Language, something like that. There's TOEFL and TEFL. There's the Cambridge certificate, which is like the creme de la creme. It's a bit costed.
That's the CELTA, right?
Yes, that's the CELTA. Thank you. That's the CELTA certificate. And then you have also the TKT, Teaching Knowledge Training certificate, also from the University of Cambridge. And I'm sure there's a plethora of other ones, but those are the more industry usual ones.
So one of those.
One of those, yes. And then obviously you should have an undergraduate degree.
Okay.
And I'll tell you now, there's levels to this, because let me clue you in. You speak English, you can get a job, depending on where you are. You speak English and you can get a job. Okay. There are people here who were living in the United States and they're Mexican, or and they've had to come back to the United States. They may or may not have a degree. They have a high school education, but they speak English and they work here as English language teachers. And I say here that maybe that happens more in smaller towns where there's less English around. So there's a big need for English because Mexico has the structure in their universities. If you don't pass the TOEFL or TEFL exam, you cannot receive your bachelor's degree. So that's the structure in Mexico. That's from the Department of Education, Secretary of Education. In order for you to get your undergraduate degree, you have to have X amount of hours, course hours in English, and you have to get a certificate in order for you to get your degree. If you do not pass this English exam, you will not get your degree. And I have failed people, and they've had to take the course over again because they're just not studying as they should. So that's one thing with Mexico, and that's nationwide. That's nationwide. And the other issue is that many jobs, for example, we are in the petroleum sector, so we have businesses here that are international. Mexico recently privatized their petroleum sector through the law. So now you imagine that there'll be more multinational companies coming in. You have to speak English. It was an issue before with Mexicans needing to speak English for these international jobs, but even more so now. We have the Bayer company, drug company. We have Volkswagen in Puebla. So there are international companies here, and Mexicans recognize that they need to speak English. I'll also share with you that I learned recently, Mexico is one of the countries that are at the bottom for English language speaking. And that surprised me. Yes, ma'am, I read a stat, and it's because there's just variables why, but Mexico was one of the least speaking English speaking countries, which threw me for a loop. It threw me for a loop. Northern Mexico is a different dynamic because they're right by the United States, but the further you in, the further you go, central and southern Mexico, English is not as vibrant, or it's just not as widely spoken, outside of expat areas. And as a result of that, Mexico's English level is rather low.
I will add to that if, like when I taught business English, I taught at a bunch of engineers, and they were telling me that basically when they're trying to program something or whatever the stuff software engineers do, because I don't really understand, they were like, all of the help documents, all of that kind of stuff
English
is in English. So
Mhm.
that's why their company was paying the company I worked for to have somebody come teach them English, because they needed it to successfully do their job. So,
I don't
you know,
understand. My students at the university, I taught at a technical university, that's where my scholarships through are Malika Tech. And I have students who are software engineers, all these sort of IT people, and they're monolingual in Spanish. And then they tell me, well, I want to work for Google, Amazon, Nike, Coca-Cola. I'm like, you can't work for them if you're trying to remain in Spanish. I says, even if you stay in this region, I said, you don't have to leave your square corner. But the fact
no.
that you're working with these multinational companies, you need English, and you're going to be stymied if you don't get this language. And it's, a lot of them are technical. I says, it is what it is. A lot of the technologies, it comes out of, it's English. So you need to learn this language for your own benefit, for your future, to be successful.
Okay, and we had another question. Evan wanted to know if you have considered to moving other countries once your daughter masters Spanish.
Sure. I don't know. She's going to come along with her crazy mama and want to stay in the States with her daddy and her sibling. Her father has other children, but yes, I plan on probably spending a big chunk of my middle years in Mexico, but my retirement, the goal is to head to more than likely Western Africa. I don't know if it'll be, I don't know. I don't want a place too religious, so I don't know. My goal is to be buried in Western Africa, where my family's from. So definitely Western Africa. I'm not opposed to moving to Eastern Africa either. So those are the two regions where I would be. I don't see myself dying and being buried in Mexico, no. But a big chunk of my life, I will spend time here, and I would hope that I'm getting this real estate for my daughter. She would have, she has her American citizenship. Her father's from Ghana, so she has her Ghanaian citizenship, and then she has permanent residency in Mexico. So my
Hey,
daughter
now
has options, yeah. Just to have
she's
options.
she's got
Yeah.
options. I love it. I
Yes.
love it.
Yes.
I know you talked about y'all do CrossFit, aerial yoga. What are some of the other fun things that you do with your daughter or that are available in Orizaba?
We do a lot of we eat. We like to eat out. That's a big part of our fun. My daughter is an avid swimmer, so she swims a lot. There's a horseback riding place not too far from here that I wanted her to join because I wanted her to continue riding horses. And everything stopped with the pandemic, so we want to get back to horseback riding and the aerial yoga you mentioned, the swimming, eating out. There are a plethora of parks here. There's so many parks. The parks have, we go bike riding in the park. We, play with our dog, and that's about it. Occasionally go to the mall and shop. We love to go into El Centro because our El Centro is a sensory overload. There's so many stores in our El Centro, so we're always window shopping, buying little tchotchkes, buying things, walking around, admiring the architecture. And yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do.
All right.
And we're going to the beach. Yeah, we're going to the beach too. So we do bus trips to the beach. So we're going to take a bus trip to the beach. So for me and my daughter to go to the beach, it's to the beach, and then we're going to go to the Malecon in Veracruz port. So those are two different lugares, two different places. For me and my daughter to go, it's 500 pesos round trip. So that's about $25 for the day trip. And we do a lot of beach tours around the state.
That sounds good. Okay, Kimberly Upchurch asked, this may be off topic, but has anyone discussed hair products in the beautician services, that sort of thing? I did a video that I will drop in the comments, but I am curious about what that's like in Orizaba.
Well, let me tell you. I have sister locks, okay, or I had sister locks. They're not sister locks no more because I'm not going to sit here and twist all this hair up myself. So I finger twist. I don't use the tool. So you're not going to find anyone to maintain your. Well, let me backtrack. There was a woman who did my hair, but she messed my hair up. So you're really going to have to become self-reliant, and you're going to have to learn to do your hair yourself if you live in these small towns. Yes, there are beauticians here, and you can show them things, and they can do things. And there's a woman from Honduras. She's me, Honduras? Yeah. She's a Garifuna sister. So she does braids and the like. But I am a child of a beautician. My sister braids hair. We're West African. And the level of braids and hair, it's not the same. You really have to become self-sufficient. And shamefully, I don't know how to corn braid.
I don't either.
My daughter cut her locks off. I can do some locks, but she cut her locks off. So we're throwing it. And I'll tell you something. There's a woman here who's Mexican who went to YouTube University, and she knows how to braid hair from YouTube University to the point now that she teaches master classes and gives out certificates. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? Shameful for me, my black self. But she teaches others to braid, and everyone assumes me being black, I know how to braid some hair. I'm like, I can braid your hair, but I can't put no extensions and point braid your hair. So there's really nothing here. You really have to become self-reliant. Or there's a Honduran woman and this one Mexican woman. Other than that, and in terms of beauty products, we do have a Sally's, and Walmart has a good selection. We have a Walmart and a Sally's, and a lot of things you can order on Mercado Libre or Amazon, or you got to become a kitchen beautician and make your own stuff.
Or you can travel. Like Playa del Carmen is probably your best option if you want, like, I want to go to a black hair salon. That's probably your best bet. But
and Marina too, I think. And Marina.
Yeah.
I know there's a sister in Guadalajara that does hair. There's some sisters, I think, in Guadalajara. You have to go to the enclaves where there are black people. And then you'll find
but I dropped a link in the comments for the video that I did, and I kind of covered products, stylists, and all that kind of good stuff. We had a question here about land. Can you describe the soil? Is it fertile, for example?
Yes, the soil is very rich. There's a lot of natural resources here. Veracruz is known for vanilla production, coffee, sugar. We have chayote, which is, chayote is a vegetable. I'm going to cross it. It's a cross between like a potato and like a green apple. That's produced here. Veracruz is known for that. So corn. So yeah, the soil is rich, fertile.
Okay. Y'all have any more questions?
But Orizaba is closed. No gentrification.
Yes. We're not encouraging you to go to Orizaba, but we're encouraging you to think outside of the box and explore areas that are not so foreigner heavy. Because you'll really get a much richer experience doing that in Mexico. And while we're waiting to see if anybody else has any questions, if you have enjoyed this interview and you like the kind of videos I do, could I ask you a favor to please subscribe to my channel? I am trying to make 1,000 subscribers before May 1st. Last time I checked, I was like at 870 something. So if you like this kind of content and you would like for more of it to come to your home screen, please subscribe. Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Vice. Anybody else have questions?
Can I plug my Roxana Bangura
Please,
channel?
please, please. And I did drop a link
Okay.
in I
Okay,
did,
good.
but go ahead and plug it because
The Roxana Bangura channel is dedicated to the life and times of my daughter living in Mexico and beyond. Please tune in. I'm struggling to get to 1,000. She's doing very well because she has a new channel. My channel is a couple of years old. So you can find out a lot about my journey on there. I literally started it the day Obama left office. So that was a very auspicious day.
oh
That's when I
wow.
started my channel, January 20th, 2017. And I announced that we were moving to Mexico, and we moved 6 months later. So I track our journey there, and I track our journey since then.
Okay. I know you picked up. Okay, thanks, Jasmine. We're at 889. So we're making some progress. I forgot who it was earlier when I posted the link in the comments to your channel. Somebody had mentioned that they subscribed.
Oh,
But
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you, subscriber.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simona, for sharing. I don't, y'all know I'm not one to ask for a lot or to like toot my own horn or put myself out there, but I really would like to get to 1,000 before next Friday. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Roxana,
Thank
for
you.
coming
Thank
on
you for this
here.
opportunity. Thank you. Thank you for letting me
Thank
share my story.
Thank you all for joining us on this Sunday. I hope that you got a chance to see just some more of the awesomeness that is Mexico and why and here's something I mentioned in a couple of other videos. Out of the Afro-descendant population in Mexico, nearly a third of those people are from the United States. So there are lots of us. It's like 27% of all of the African descendant people in this country. If this is something you're considering, you will be in good company. There are lots of us. We're all over Mexico. We're all over the country, but you will be in good company.
Yeah.
All right. See y'all.
Bye.